Hello, I'm Paris, and welcome back to Video Games Done Badly. As shown in my previous video, I am bad at talking, but talking isn't a video game now, is it?
Yes, indeed.
But Dark Souls 1 just so happens to have 26 bosses, just how the alphabet has 26 letters. So let's go back to school, and back to the first Dark Souls game, to learn our ABCs. As Miss Langtree goes through the asylum, hello Jimmy Brown, there are a few things to cover by the run. This is not a can you beat all Dark Souls bosses in alphabetical order. That has already been done by NG+. It's definitely worth a watch, and I've linked it below. My run will be more of an ABCs of Dark Souls. For me, this means that every boss will be letter locked for the armor and weapons I use. The bosses themselves are fought in an order that, while not exactly alphabetical, I have made to fit into the pattern. I had to be a bit creative with the order because I'm not allowing any major skips, aside from Asylum skip. I will be allowing myself item duplication, but only at select parts, and only to take away the not fun grinding of souls and materials. Since we don't have any weapons that start with A at the beginning, the Asylum demon will have to be something that we have to go back to. We just need to grab a few things first. It is in the Valley of Drakes that we learn A is not only for Asylum demon, but also a Store Straight Sword, our first weapon. Unfortunately, we'll need to do something less than honorable to get our first piece of armor. But anyway, we finish off A pretty quickly, killing the Asylum demon in only 3 hits. B is for Bell Gargoyles and Bandit's Knife. After multiple failed attempts to even get up to the rooftop, I finally faced the second boss. As I mentioned before, I typically go for a heavier build, so I'm not quite used to the quick but low damaging dagger playstyle. I decided it's worth it to spend a few souls to upgrade the knife to +3, and it turns out it was, since I beat the gargoyles on my 3rd attempt overall, also thanks to two-handing the weapon. Please, take your seat children, you're late, you know the rules. Once the bell has rung, class has begun. After ringing the first school bell, we return to Andre and he teaches us that C is for Claymore. What's that? Oh, it's also for Chaos Witch Quelaag. We better get some fitting armor, and a weapon for much later, while we're here. Waldtrek likes the sound of the chainmail so much that he gives us his ring. Havel is a bit more attached to his own ring, however, but with some strong words and a strong hand, he eventually gives in. Ah, light rolling, much better. Where were we? Oh, yeah, Demon Spider Lady. At +2, the damage the Claymore does against her is not great, but she's not too bad. Plenty of opportunities to swing, and she does go down on the first attempt. Time to pay dear old brother a visit. For some reason, I am very bad at dodging his attacks, making even the intended cheese, which should be simple, a task for me. But I do deal a defeating bit of damage using the Demon Hammer, decimating the Dieseless Discharge. What? E is the first stretch, mostly because I prioritized F, but E is for Great Wolf Sith. Let's go with Airwolf instead. Yeah, Anglo-Saxon is fine. When I was coming back up from Blighttown, I had grabbed the Chloranthy Ring for the Great Hollow, our next weapon from New Londo, the S-Stock, and our armor from the Darkroot Basin and Garden, a mix of the Elite Knight armor and Eastern armor. Considering the thrusting attacks of the S-Stock and Sif's lanky legs, I found not locking on and manually aiming more reliable. Woof, that's not a lot of damage. It's a bit better after going back to Andre, but damage is damage, and if it can take damage, it can be defeated. Did you know, not all dogs are good boys. Some are good girls. With the Covenant of Artorias in hand, or should I say on hand, it's time to go down to New Londo for F, the Four Kings. Fun times! There is an armor piece that starts with F, the Fang Boar Helm, which I did get from the Undead Parish Boar on my first playthrough, but not this one. So it's just our weapon for this fight, which will be the Falchion. Okay, no, how about the Flamberge? Forget it, F stands for Furry. At max Covenant level, and plenty of practice, I'm able to get consistent damage, even to the point of keeping the fight to mostly one-on-ones, and eventually 1-on-0. After I finally failed the Four Kings, I gather my gold-helmet gear, Great Club, go to the Gaping Dragon. Wait, I need the key to the depths, which is behind the Capra Demon. Golem, G's for Golem, and Gravity, because it's funny. Wait, I don't need to be here yet. Leaving Sense Fortress, I equip our H weapon and pick up some H armor, then it's down to the Catacombs for the H boss. Pinwheel. Yeah, Pinwheel. What are you talking about? I'm just saying it, Pinwheel. You fight Pinwheel in the Catacombs. The Catacombs boss is Pinwheel. Next, we can use the gear I picked up earlier to fight an imp. Full transparency, when I was routing the run, I originally had the Gaping Dragon for G, the Iron Golem for I, and the boss of the lower Undead Burg for L. But I had forgotten the depths are inaccessible before Capra, so there's some off-the-cuff wonkiness with the run. So for I, you get either an imp, or I can say that the lowercase L, as in lower Undead Burg, looks like an I. This is a stupid run. Prepping for the next letter, I reused some recent gear to get a piece of new gear. the Jagged Ghost Blade, which with normal item discovery is only a 1% drop. This better be worth it. The boss for J is the Taurus Demon. Why? That's after X. But Taurus Demon is for J because it jumps, both for me as I get a plunging attack, and for the boss as it jumps off the edge. K is for Knights and Kin of Royalty, who we'll see in a second. As for weapon, K is for Katana. What do you mean there's a miracle that starts with K? There's no miracle that starts with K. There's never been any miracle with K. Karmic Justice is just a myth. Jokes aside, I do not believe it was possible for Karmic Justice to proc against Priscilla. If you want to see it against a boss, I'd highly recommend Backlogs' indirect damage run. Unfortunately, I failed to get the tail cut on Priscilla. No fluffy girl dance dagger for us. By take her out, I mean down, on the first attempt, and grab some armor for later on the way out. After K is L, and L is leather armor, longsword, and lizard. A very, very long lizard.
Long.
Despite equipping it, I don't bother using the shield. And as long as I aim for the head of the dragon, the damage isn't too bad. Oh yeah, forgot to kill the channeler. It's no matter. After some kiting around, the long lizard is no longer living. M is a pretty easy one. There's the mace, and there's the moonlight butterfly. No reaching needed. I definitely could have two-cycled the butterfly, but I was distracted in the first part of the fight. Either Dark Souls 1 is easier than remember, or I've actually improved, because more than half the bosses thus far have been first try victories. The next weapon is a familiar one, the Notched Whip, returning for the second video. For its boss, I felt that a straight demon fight fit here best. Yes, we are counting the N of demon for one reason: bleed. Even at plus 10, the individual hits don't do great damage, but when bleed procs, it makes it worth it. Oh, it's O. There is a boss that starts with O, and it is available to us now. Let's see, what weapons start with O? The Obsidian Greatsword, which is in the DLC, which is past Ornstein Smell. Maybe Catalyst. The regular Ulasil Catalyst is out of the question, as it's also locked behind the DLC, but the Ulasil Ivory Catalyst is sold by Dusk in Modern Dark Group. We free her from her ornate jail, buy it, and test it. That's not gonna be enough. What else could we use? Are there any spells that start with O? That's it, orbs. I give myself enough souls to level up to get 5 orbs from Homing Soul Mass and buy Fire Orb from Laurentius. And with the Dust Crown Ring, we're sitting at 7 casts of Fire Orb and 15 of Homing Soul Mass. Unfortunately, the only armor that starts with O is currently being worn by someone we were actively trying to kill, so it's no armor for me this fight. But even with half my health, I can survive most hits. My strategy is pretty straightforward: save Smo for the second phase to get his weapon and or armor later. Since there are 2 enemies, I need to be fairly quick with my casts, so I try to use only Homing Soul Mass on the first phase. Which wouldn't be a problem if Smo didn't constantly take the hits. Seriously, why are these orbs going to him? So actually, Homing Soul Mass just cares where you're facing, not who you're locked onto. With that knowledge, I start to not lock on and be sure to face my character away from both bosses until I'm confident I have a good opportunity for them to hit Ornstein. Which works. A bit. I trip up with directions, cast timings, roll timings, etc., but at least the orbs fizzling out on Smo's hammer is less common. On a particularly bad start, I quit out to get a fresh retry. But instead of respawning outside the fog wall, I stand up in the boss arena with an AI frozen Ornstein Smo. At the time, I had no clue what happened, but not wanting to look a gift lying in the mouth, I took the opportunity and got an easy kill on Ornstein. After the phase transition cutscene, Smo did wake up from his nap and was not happy. Between the remaining soul masses and fireballs, I did get him down to about half, which his health was kinda hard to see on account of the phase 1 boss bars reappearing when I stepped near the fog wall. On the very next attempt, I also had a bad start, and upon quitting and rejoining, the same thing happened again. More on that later. Deciding to save most of my spells for Smo, I whittle Ornstein down with a Catalyst, finishing him off with a Homing Soul Mass. With plenty of spells this time, I carefully lead Smo around the arena, only casting and facing him when I'm confident that he won't lower his hammer. With Fire Orbs and no Soul Masses to spare, I defeat the Guardians of Anor Londo. With Lord Vessel in hand, things will go by much quicker, considering I don't have to manually backtrack from now on. I use the souls I've gotten to buy some shards for future upgrades, and apparently you can ascend the notched weapon to Priscilla's life on Scythe? I had no idea that was a thing. Moving on to P, I go down to the Tomb of the Giants to get some armor. There goes Paladin Leroy, and if I take the coffin to Nita's lair, his armor should be right here. Where's his armor? Oh, quitting out and rejoining resummons him. I knew it was fishy that he didn't drop his weapon and shield. There we go, Paladin's armor. Don't worry, big guy, I'll be back for you. I could have fought Priscilla here for P, but for routing, we'll say that P is for the Pale Drake, Seath, which is why my pike has a lightning infusion. Something I find very funny is on the first Seath encounter, you can actually go back through the fog wall to exit his room. Also, would highly recommend wearing a rare ring of sacrifice to both prevent curse and to save your souls and humanity. I don't see enough people do it here. Despite dying an embarrassing amount of times, both escaping the prison and making my way down to the Crystal Caves, I finally managed to get the boss encounter. With high curse resist armor like a paladin set and a lightning infused pike, Seath doesn't stand much of a chance. He does try to afflict me with blindness as well, blocking my entire view with crystals, but I eventually poke the Pale Drake until he perishes. Q is for
Esqueleto.
which, because I can barely even speak my own language, I will not be saying. To fight the big Vita Gunga, I'll use the only weapon that starts with Q, Quelaag's Fairy Sword, which to upgrade it, I kill the Titanite demons and send Fortress for their heads, and their weapon. With it at plus 3 and 10 soft humanity, I'm able to one-shot the skeletons and do decent damage to Nito himself. I do get toxic and die a few times, but I'm able to keep up the heat, and the big skeleton goes down. 9 letters left, 9 bosses left, and it's time to start the DLC. In preparation, I upgrade my normal playthrough weapon of the Reinforced Club, return to the Duke's Archives for some robes, and go back down to the Catacombs for hopefully the last time to get the Royal Helm from this fine gentleman. R is for Roar, the catchphrase of our favorite Roarian, the Sanctuary Gar. I get punished a few times for the disrespect I put on his name, but every death seemed fair. And in contrast to the difficulty I had on my first playthrough with him, I defeat the Roaring Manticore soon thereafter. Unfortunately, our stay in Ulasile is short-lived, as it's back to modern Loredran for the next boss, a certain Sage of Fire, who just so happens to be a demon. I originally intended on using Smo's Hammer, but underestimated the strength requirement, so even two-handing it, I don't have enough points. Thankfully, Sunbro did give us one more thing before he parted, the Sunlight Straight Sword. With it at plus 10, Leroy Sanctus, and Smo's chestplate, the reskin of a boss falls pretty quickly. We go back again to Ulasile to find out that T stands for the Tin Man Knight Artorias. The Titanite catchpole we got earlier does enough damage for me to work with, but I don't quite have enough skill to work with. Up until this point, I've never really given thought to the difference in rolling between DS1 and its successors, but this fight made me painfully aware of the freedoms that multi-directional rolling gave me. After a while trying, I decided that something needed to change. The biggest hurdle was rolling, so that's what I focused on improving. Then something clicked, or should I say, flipped. And sure enough, second attempt with the Darkwood Grain Ring, I successfully toppled the Tin Man. But that's not the whole story of the fight. You remember the AI freeze that occurred with Ornstein and Smo? Same thing happened with Artorias. I had a rough start, getting hit by unironically my favorite enemy attack in the whole game,
Pocket sand!
followed by a few more hits, and I quit out for a quick, clean start. But when reloading, as with ONS, I was still in the arena. I thought it was a glitch with the previous fight, but this time I started to wonder, you see that sigil below my stamina bar? I noticed it when I installed the Dark Souls PvP Overhaul mod, which I had installed just prior to Anorlando, since I've heard and seen plenty of cases of hackers invading and ruining the experience there. I was aware that the mod was the primary way to protect against such, so I installed it and didn't think much else of it. My theory is that the mod was responsible for not taking my character outside the boss arena, but the boss AI wouldn't realize I was still there, resulting in an AI freeze, and awkwardly, an unfair exploit. When I did come to this conclusion, I went back to the fog wall, which reactivated Artorias' AI, and made a point to not quit out in the boss arena for the rest of the playthrough. Anyway, back to the run. Oh yeah, the strict was alphabet, not alliteration. U is for U-turn, but for the way that Calamite makes a U-turn after raining fire on this valley, as well as the U-turn I want to make as soon as I step foot into Ulasile Township. I'm not kidding when I say I've only played the DLC once or twice before, and it is exclusively because of this annoying town. Anyway, I find the thing, talk to the guy, and he does the thing. I tried to make a plus 12 Uchigatana work, but it didn't quite cut it. But after a visit back to New Londo and using a slab from the Stray Demon, we were looking pretty sharp at plus 15. It takes an hour attempt, but for whatever reason, fighting the Black Dragon naked with a weapon class I barely used makes me really appreciate the fight. I truly did feel like I was learning his attack patterns and reacting accordingly to avoid them. I had kindled the bonfire to 20 Estus, but I only used 5. I was doing just over 100 damage per hit, but I found ample opportunities to get hits in, and it turns out, U was for understanding the fight. After a quick detour back to the Painted Worlds to get a weapon from the Annex, it's time to learn V. V is for Velka's Rapier and Vermin. Since I won't be using the armor again, I decide to go all in on attack and upgrade the Rapier to plus 5 using Twinkling Titanite. I fail at getting to the back platform the first time, but when I make it on the second attempt, I deliver some quick pokes to the big bug while not locked on. I even get both an arm and a tail cut, and kill it with a toothpick right after. W is for Witches and Warpix. I don my own witch attire, along with a Chandler's waistcloth because I thought it looked cool, and barge into Witchland's Hall.
What foolishness.
Their slipperiness made it hard to get more than one attack in, if even, but with enough persistence and the usual strategy of hiding behind the pillars, I chase them down. X is another stretch for a few things. Armor is easy enough, with a whole Xanthus set gone from the Painted World. As for boss, I figured this would be a good time to fight Manus. I originally looked at primates whose genuses started with X, but if you think about it, the journey through the DLC is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Yeah, X for paradox. Less of a stretch is the weapon of choice, the crossbow, an X-bow, if you will. Once I fell into the rhythm, Manus wasn't too bad, especially with a plus 15 heavy crossbow. It was a little annoying being forced to reload after every shot, but Manus actually wasn't acting as manic as usual. I waited for either his slam, his long combo, or another attack with downtime after, took a shot, and repeated. The main concern for me was the dark magic attacks. Even with the pendant, my reflexes were slow, at least at first. On the last fight, I felt like I got the timings down. Mostly. 15 minutes of attempts later, and with only 3 S's chugged, the paradox is laid to rest. Or set into motion? I don't know, time travel's weird. X was the last letter to have armor with it, so I won't be using any more armor for the last 2 letters. And Y doesn't have any weapons. But I did think ahead and I tell you, Y is for... Why is this a boss? I did consider using the bow and firebomb strategy, but to defeat this nothing of a boss, I decided to use nothing. Except Bare Fists. After a few fails and falls, the Witch of Izalith is laid to bed. And at last, we've come to Z. Z stands for many things. Zigzag, Zapper, Zucchini, but for the zenith of this run, it stands for 2 things. Zweihander and Zealot. Because Gwyn truly is a person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of their ideals. There's not much to say about this withered man. All it takes is a few parries and 2 Ano's wings. Old man, go to the dunce box. There you have it, the ABCs of Dark Souls, or my attempt at beating Dark Souls 1, mostly alphabetically. I did have to make multiple reaches and routing, but I hope the reasonings I gave were good enough. Thank you for watching. I'm Pyres, eat your potatoes and molasses, and remember to just do your best. It's all anyone can ask of you.